Hi everyone, thank you for having me at the conference. My name is Evgenia Amey and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Jyväskylä, Finland. My presentation today deals with how familiar places can be experienced through fiction and also how text can be imagined through personal spatial experience. As someone coming from the field of tourism studies, the pandemic affected not only my life and work practices as for everyone, but also the focus of my research. Much has been already written on the profound effect that the pandemic had on tourism industry. And at the same time, the researchers used this opportunity to examine the changing nature of the relationship between humans and space. The focus of my previous research has been mostly on fiction-inspired travel, but already before the pandemic, I have turned my attention to how familiar places, such as those where we currently reside in or those we have visited before, influence the way we read fiction. For this study, I drew not only on previous research in the field of tourism, but also literary geography and humanistic geography. Studies that particularly inspired me were those published in Literary Geography's journal, which used autoethnographic approach and studied the role of personal histories when reading texts and experiencing the real sites which feature in works of fiction. And also there is a number of studies from tourism research, which used autoethnographic approach and examined the researchers' own personal relationships with places. As for theories, I used the situated reading theories, which drew on Donna Haraway's ideas of situatedness and situated knowledge. So, as many accounts found in research and online demonstrate, people react differently to the current situation. Some find more time to read, while others find it hard to concentrate and engage with fiction. For some, reading alone is totally fine, and others prefer to read together with people they know, even though they are separated by thousands of kilometers, or they turn to strangers who have similar interests, such as the case, for example, with online reading communities. What is of particular interest to me is how prior and especially during the pandemic, readers' past and present geographical experience informs the way the text is imagined and vice versa. In some instances, we can see that fiction spills over the actual world places where you find yourself, and stories become associated also with places previously visited. I also took into consideration earlier research in literary geographies and tourism studies, which found that there is no need basically for a verifiable connection to the author or the story for the association to appear. So in what follows, I will give my own brief account of how I spatially read fiction. This is drawing on fieldwork in Helsinki prior to the pandemic, and also includes reflections on my previous experience of spatial reading. So just a map to demonstrate. Murmansk, the city where I grew up, Northwest Russia, and Birmingham. So is there a connection? As a teen, I read novels and short stories by British author Joel Lane. For example, From Blue to Black, the novel, and The Lost District collection of short stories. They are set in Birmingham, and they give insights into the darker side of a post-industrial city. Without going into much detail, I can say that although there is really not much connection between the two cities, the climate is different, the distance is huge, as you can see. The history is also very different, but the feeling that the stories created resonated very well with my own experience of the city at the time. And going back to Helsinki, where am I now? This Helsinki I used to visit when studying, and then I moved here in 2013. There were not many books set in Helsinki that I read before, but for my doctoral research, I turned to works by Tove Jansson, who is known as the creator of the Moomins. But for my research, I focused on her adult prose, which is often autobiographical, and some of the novels and short stories are set in Helsinki. It was really interesting to see how, when reading her prose, how I easily connected it to my own experience of the city, because really there is not much description of the city in the text, but my own knowledge and experience helped me fill in those blanks. The places that I visited for work and for leisure, the seasons, they all helped me to imagine how it is, even if the author does not state something directly. What I also observed is that my own in-betweenness as a non-native Finnish resident resonated with what I perceived as the writer's own in-betweenness. So based on those two examples, the connection between fiction and spatial experience can flow in both ways, from the place to the text and from the text to the place. All readers are essentially situated, so our past and present experiences inform the way we imagine the text. But then at the same time, the stories can spill over the places which we visited or where we currently reside. And as was found in previous research, and as I observed in the first example, there really is no need sometimes for verifiable connection to the author, the story, or an adaptation. Association can appear based purely on the feeling, on the mood, on the atmosphere. As for autoethnographic approach, it served the purpose. It gave me the tool to examine my own experience and connect it to my reading and see how they sort of supplied each other. But at the same time, to address the critique of the approach that it's too subjective, too personal, too selective. Yes, it was that. I tried to counterbalance it with supplementing autoethnography with analysis of visitor accounts to try to get another perspective, and also some of the walks I have done in Helsinki visiting the sites connected to Tove Jansson and her works were done in collaboration with a colleague and a friend. We did not go as far as making it a truly collaborative autoethnography like Chan, Ngonjiri, and Hernandez suggest, but it would surely be a way to go, in my opinion, for the future studies. I have to confess that one of the blanks in my research was that my colleagues' experiences and the visitor experiences that I analyzed, they had basically people of the same demographic. Women past 30, European, university educated, and the way they experienced the sites with connection to Tove Jansson. So for the future research and also for my own upcoming studies, it would be really helpful to combine different perspectives, because the same text and also the same sites with connection to literature can be experienced differently by people of diverse backgrounds. So this is something I would like to do in the future. Thank you. Bye.